Today we'll be taking a look at how the first Witchers were created and what caused them to branch out into separate yet distinct schools. So, if you want to know about the history of the School of the Viper or what caused the downfall of the School of the Cat, then stick around. And if you enjoy the content, please make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Every little bit counts to helping the community grow, and I really do appreciate every last one of you. Thank you. The Order of Witchers. In the 10th century, kings and their mage allies had a crazy idea: create an order of magic-using knights to help the Nordlings deal with monsters they couldn't handle on their own. This ambitious plan gave birth to the Order of Witchers. However, the results weren't exactly what they hoped for. The mutations they used on these knights turned out to be quite the disappointment, and most mages started calling the Witchers mere charlatans, capable of little more than simple tricks. But some renegade mages, like Alzar, still believed in the project. They continued the experiments in secret with the support of a few monarchs, eventually perfecting the trials and mutations. The initial attempts to create Witchers from adults were unsuccessful, so they decided to experiment on children instead. Alzar spent weeks traveling around, gathering 38 children and bringing them to Risberg Castle. The children had to undergo intense and brutal training to prepare for the experiments. This included climbing cliffs, running through obstacle courses filled with traps, and dodging swinging pendulums while blindfolded. The training was so harsh that 4 children died before the experiments even began. Among the survivors were a boy named Ireland of Larvik and a girl named Yagoda. As the experiments approached, the children started consuming strange concoctions like bubbling mushroom stews and soapy alchemical teas. Initially, these made them faster and stronger, but soon most of the girls, including Yagoda, became ill. When the experiments officially started, the number of surviving children quickly decreased. Yagoda died within the first week, and it took nearly a month to successfully transform one boy into a Witcher. A week later, Erlen was also successfully transformed. By the end of the mutations, only 5 boys remained. These surviving boys then underwent rigorous training with experts from all over the continent, including hunters, alchemists, and swordsmen. The hunters taught them to track and hunt, the alchemists showed them how to brew potions and concoctions, and the swordsmen trained them in combat. Despite this extensive training, the children still didn't meet expectations. The mutations had opened their bodies to the flow of magic, but they ended up with only limited magical abilities. Disappointed with this outcome, the Witchers were banished from Risberg. However, a few mages, including Alzar, Cosimo Malaspina, and Iteron of Olivo, decided to continue the experiment. They ended up relocating the Witchers to the abandoned Morgrey Castle in the Kestrel Mountains to continue their experiments and training. Months before the first generation of Witchers were set out on the path, their sword trainer was replaced by a knight-errant whom the Witchers called Griffin after the black griffin on his shield. Not only did he teach them the southern sword styles, but also spoke to them about their duty and purpose of their creation. These words, in particular, resonated with Ireland. In the years that followed, as more Witchers were created, they would set out on the path in the spring, taking contracts across the continent. They would return in the winter to the warm fires of Morgreg, spending time with their brothers and celebrating surviving another year on the path, while mourning those who had died. Years later, Alzar, Cosimo, and Iteron left, leaving only a handful of mages to perform the mutations and leaving the order without a clear leader. While the Witchers traveled all over the known continent and there were plenty of settlements and contracts to go around, they started to trick one another out of contracts and even threatened to kill each other if they didn't move on. These incidents were the beginnings to the catalyst that would eventually break the order up and lead to Witchers forming their own schools. The Witcher's code is somewhat disputed, as Geralt uses it for his convenience, and other Witchers from different schools do not necessarily follow this code. However, it is generally agreed that one of the tenets of the order is not to kill fellow Witchers. The School of the Bear. The School of the Bear was founded by the first group of Witchers who split off from the Order of Witchers. The drama started when a Witcher named Arnagad attacked another Witcher named Reese and nearly killed him. Anticipating that the other Witchers would come after him for this, Arnagad showed up at the Order's keep with a posse of brothers ready for a fight. After a fierce battle, the Order emerged victorious, and Arnagad and his followers, including a Witcher named Ivar Evileye, retreated. They eventually settled in the Amel Mountains and established connections with the dwarves and gnomes in the region. Not long after the school was founded, more trouble brewed. Ivar Evil Eye, who had visions of the Wild Hunt, wanted to take action against them. However, he knew that Grandmaster Arnagod wouldn't support this idea, as Arnagod believed witchers should only be paid to kill monsters. Ivar and his group attempted to overthrow Arnagod, but their plan failed, forcing them to leave the school. Ivar went on to establish the School of the Viper, while another group, led by Iwin, split off before the Vipers were founded, and eventually created the School of the Manticore, both of which we will be discussing later. At the height of their power, the Bear Witchers were a force to be reckoned with. They often traveled to Skellige, drawn by the island's abundance of monsters and the islanders' warrior mindset, which resonated with their own. Despite the passage of centuries, older witchers from other schools still refer to them as the Kinslaying Bears, a nickname that reflects their violent origins. The downfall of the School of the Bear came after they failed a major contract to destroy a cabal of vampires. This failure led to widespread frustration among the local population, already weary from ongoing wars. Eventually, the surrounding villages united against the Bear Witchers, preferring to share the mountains with monsters rather than witchers. The Bear Witchers, who lacked strong bonds and loyalty to each other, chose to disband rather than die defending their keep from the angry villagers. Their fortress in Hernkaduk fell into disrepair and was buried by time and the elements. Rumors persist that some old members may have returned, as witchers became necessary once again. One of the most challenging trials for Bear School students was the Trial of the Mountain. The grueling test required venturing to the peak of Mount Gorgon to retrieve a special runestone as proof of ascent. Many boys didn't survive the brutal cold and treacherous climb, freezing to death long before reaching the summit. Bear School witchers were known for their solitary nature. Unlike the wolves or griffins, they didn't form strong bonds with each other, and encounters on the path could even lead to bloodshed. This stemmed from the philosophy of their founder, who believed witchers should focus solely on their jobs. He dismissed any code or knightly virtues as ego-feeding nonsense, valuing autonomy above all else, even within the school itself. Life at Hernkaduk was harsh. The cold and snow of the mountains meant the boys had to huddle close to hearth fires or sleep under many firs to avoid frostbite and hypothermia. Endless snow removal from the fortress courtyard was a constant chore. This harsh environment forged the Bear Witchers into individuals of extraordinary endurance, even compared to other Witcher schools. In terms of combat, Bear Witchers favored heavier armor, prioritizing defense over agility. Along with the Cat School, they were one of the few Witcher schools known to use crossbows in their hunts. They might have used shields in the past, but this practice was abandoned after a Witcher lost not just his shield, but his entire arm. The School of the Viper. As mentioned earlier, after the betrayal of Arnagod by several Witchers that included Ivar Evil Eye, there was a divide among the original Witchers whom broke from the Order. No longer in alignment with the School of the Bear, these rebels then left to form their own school, embracing the venomous nature of Vipers. The School of the Viper was different from the start. Unlike other Witcher schools, the Vipers accepted contracts not just on monsters, but also on humans and non-humans. This led to rumors that the school was founded for sinister purposes. However, the truth was more profound. The founder of the Viper School had a grand vision to defeat the Wild Hunt. Knowing he couldn't accomplish this alone, he established the school to gather like-minded individuals dedicated to this purpose. Located in the southernmost regions, the School of the Viper is one of the most secretive and alien offshoots of the Witcher caste. They amassed an incredible collection of books and scrolls on the Wild Hunt, leading many members to believe that solving the mystery of the spectral riders was their school's true purpose. As a result, all Vipers were highly knowledgeable about the Wild Hunt. Despite their knowledge, they faced significant threats. After the usurper tried unsuccessfully to absorb the Vipers, the Nilfgaardian army destroyed their keep. The students scattered throughout the empire, banned from entering larger cities. Around 1270, after an encounter with the Wild Hunt at the Hangman's Tree, a group of Viper Witchers were arrested by the Nilfgaardian Secret Service. Emperor Emir gave them an offer they couldn't refuse: assassinate a few kings in the northern realms in exchange for the promise of rebuilding their school. The group managed to assassinate Foltest of Temeria and Demavin of Edirn. However, the Emperor didn't keep his promise and instead sent bounty hunters after the remaining Vipers to eliminate any loose ends. Training at the School of the Viper was notoriously harsh. Each student was given a pet to care for, forming a strong emotional bond through their training. But before becoming full-fledged Witchers, they were ordered to slaughter their animal in cold blood as their final trial. This ruthless approach was meant to prepare them for the brutal life ahead. Viper Witchers were trained in the use of small, twin blades, and an assassination-based approach to killing monsters. Their fighting style featured sinuous, unpredictable movements using their two blades, or fangs. Another style they employed involved fast, furious strikes to overwhelm their targets. These blades were often coated with poison, reflecting the school's deep knowledge of alchemy. Like witchers from the School of the Cat, the Vipers accepted contracts on both monsters and people. Despite this, they maintained a form of neutrality, killing for coin, but never outright joining sides in conflicts. This refusal to align with any faction ultimately led to the school's downfall. School of the Manticore. Around the time of the schism at the School of the Bear, when Ivar Evil Eye failed in his attempt to take over, his group split off and was joined by others who also disagreed with Grandmaster Arnegod's philosophy. One of these individuals was Iwin. As Ivar's group headed into the Tirtashare Mountains to find a rumored fortress for the School of the Viper, Iwin realized he didn't agree with Ivar's views either. So as the group moved towards the mountains, Iwin and a few others who doubted Ivar's leadership split off and headed to where they knew they could find work, Elkserdeg Pass in the Tirtashare Mountains. This pass bordered the infamous Korath Desert, where Zerrikanian caravans often traveled to trade with the western part of the continent. In no time, Iwin and his fellow witchers transitioned from hunters to skilled defenders, escorting caravans safely across the desert. One day, while in the desert, Iwin and his group stumbled upon a royal Zerrikanian caravan under attack by a pair of manticores. They sprang into action, killed the monsters, and discovered that the caravan was headed to meet mages at Aretuza. Among the group was Nasira Phazon, the Zerrikanian Queen's Court mage. Impressed by the Witcher's skills, Nasira offered them substantial pay and an audience with the Queen if they could escort her safely back to Zerrikania. Upon arriving at Zerrikania's capital, Nasira recounted their heroic deeds, and the Queen made them an offer. If the Witchers would work exclusively for the Crown, guarding their merchant caravans and emissaries, Zerrikania would build a castle on each side of the desert to support their school. The Witchers accepted, and 2 castles were built, Behelt Nar in the west and Biosuf Asaria in the east, with Iwin staying at the latter. Over the years, Nasira collaborated with Iwin to recreate the mutation process for the Witchers, though Iwin was somewhat evasive about the details, not fully knowing the process himself. They even tried to apply mutations to some of Zerrikania's famed warrior women, but these experiments were inconclusive. Despite this, they trained the best warriors at the new School of the Manticore, focusing on defense and the use of potions. They added special shields made of meteoritic steel and silver to their arsenal. During this time, Iwin changed his name to Ahmad Assem and became the personal witcher to the Zerrikanian Queen. In the fall of 1146, the Queen of Zerrikania organized a royal caravan to arrange a marriage between her son and the Princess of Matina. Almost the entire School of the Witchers was called upon to protect the caravan across the desert, and despite his advanced age, Ahmad decided to join them. During what later became known as the Day of Fire, the caravan encountered a towering fire elemental in the Fiery Mountains. Despite having most of the school's witchers there, they were unprepared for such a threat and lacked siege artillery. By the end of the battle, almost all the witchers, half of the royal family members, and a third of the Zerrikanian court were killed. Following this disaster, Zerrikania shunned the remaining witchers and focused on finding a safe sea route to the west. With the loss of royal support, the few remaining witchers fell into decline. One of the school's members who left, named Merton, traveled to Toussaint in 1201, seeking out a legendary armorer to commission a Grand Master gear. Instead, he ended up converting to Lebioda's teachings. He then renounced his witcher past and became a priest. By 1272, the few remaining Manticore witchers had returned to monster hunting to make a living, spending their winters at the western fortress Behelt Nar. The School of the Cat. The earliest witchers who could be seen as the spiritual ancestors of the School of the Cat were a group of 15 to 20 members from the Order of Witchers. Following the unrest caused by Arnegod's violence against a fellow Order member and the subsequent formation of the schools of the Bear and the Viper, disputes arose within the Order concerning the true basis and code of the Witcher profession. This group of young Order members believed they could improve the mutation process and build a better Order, one that would command the respect of both the poor and the mighty across the continent. One night, they left Morgreg, stealing a significant collection of mutagenic compounds and alchemical tools. The group, already using the symbol of the cat, established their base at Stiga Castle, a remote citadel in the mountains of Ebbing. From this new stronghold, the School of the Cat emerged, not just as a training facility, but as a significant player in the local political scene. To win favor with various rulers, the masters of the school rejected the policy of neutrality, sending their disciples as spies, assassins, and swords for hire. This strategy earned them respect among local common folk who appreciated the Witchers for dealing with both monsters and local banditry. The school's initial success was short-lived. The efforts to create improved, emotionless Witchers initially went well. The first cats created at Stygia were nearly devoid of emotions, appearing almost alien. However, this wasn't enough for the mages, who were given free rein by the school's masters. They began experimenting on a quote-unquote failed batch of students whose emotions were not dulled, but enhanced. These students were subjected to further tests, including vivisections and a quest for a final solution. One of these students, Gezrus, woke up in a pile of discarded corpses, barely alive. He managed to crawl out and free the remaining test subjects. They found refuge with a group of local elves who provided them sanctuary in exchange for their support in guerrilla warfare. The cat assassins working for the elves only added to the school's notorious reputation in royal circles. As tensions grew, kings and queens began to view the School of the Cat with suspicion, likely unaware of the internal schism. They started planning an assault on Stygia. Meanwhile, Gezrus and his group infiltrated the citadel under the cover of night, slaughtering the mages as they slept. After exacting their revenge, they left the old cat Witchers to face the incoming royal forces alone. The siege lasted 3 days, resulting in a blood-soaked slaughter that wiped out the defending Witchers. Satiated by revenge and free from their past, the surviving Witchers led by Gezrus moved north, bolstering their ranks with renegades and mutated outcasts from other schools. They formed the Dinmarv Caravan, rejecting the heritage of the early Stygian founders. This nomadic group of Witchers sold their skills to anyone who could pay, taking on any job. They performed their mutations through warped, experimental methods and trained their adepts aggressively, earning the disdain of the other schools. In the 1060s, members of the School of the Cat aided Elerin in her rebellion against human rule. Later, in the late 12th century, the Dinmarv Caravan settled in Hirsch, near the Wolf School summer camp. For a time, the School of the Wolf and Cat were funded by Kedwenian monarchs, and student exchanges took place. Some older Witchers even became friends. However, a faction within the Cat School, led by a Witcher named Trace, plotted against the Wolves in collusion with King Radowitz's mage, Astragarus. Trace believed that helping the Kedwenis eliminate the Wolves would earn the Cats a special position within a new Witcher order under the King's command. This sinister plan took place during what was supposed to be a friendly competition between the schools at a tournament. The plot went disastrously wrong for both schools. Just after the Cats attacked the disarmed wolves at the Witcher tournament, the king ordered his men to kill all the Witchers, revealing that the tournament's true purpose was to eliminate the growing Witcher schools. Trace was among those who were killed. In the aftermath, Cat School member Guxart and other experienced members who were unaware of the plot rebuilt the school on the condition that they would never again receive royal funding. Some cats, especially those involved in the plot, were banned from entering Kaer Morhen and other Witcher resting places, denying them a place to spend winters in warmth. In 1274, the final nail in the coffin for the School of the Cat came when Alexandre, another school member, felt disillusioned by the Witcher lifestyle and betrayed his fellow Witchers, committing murder and stealing the Grand Master's diagrams. This act of betrayal signaled the end of the school's already fragile existence. Although it seems the School of the Cat has disbanded, rumors persist that some cat Witchers have started to return to their quarters as monsters become a threat once again. Cat students, known for their balance, honed this skill by walking tightropes while blindfolded. This challenge, which began at low heights, increased in danger over time, culminating in a final trial where failure meant death. The cats developed fighting styles focused on speed, precision, and agility. Consequently, Cat School Witchers and their equipment were designed for flexibility and range of motion, favoring critical hits over raw damage. Because the cats lacked a permanent home, they trained wherever they could, even within human cities. Warped mutations and time spent among the elves made the Cat School members as flexible in their morals and politics as they were in their armor and fighting style. Over time, they became pariahs even among their fellow Witchers for taking contracts on humans, a practice that went against the Witcher code. The School of the Cat had no code of neutrality and fought on the side of the elves during the race wars. As a result, they displayed a favorable attitude towards the elves. Some even used the elven word dwan when referring to humans. Gezras, the school's founder, was known to say he would take a contract from an elf over a dwan any day. While the School of the Cat no longer functions as it once did, its influence persists in the surviving witchers who continue to roam the land. School of the Griffin. As the schools of the Bear, Viper, and Cat were founded, the original order of witchers grew weaker. Erland of Larvik decided he wouldn't let the order's original purpose and ideals fade away. Together with 13 of his closest friends, they amicably left the order and traveled east to Cairn Seren. This fortress, previously used by Alzur and his associates for early witcher experiments, was haunted by spirits of those failed experiments. After dealing with these spirits, they established the School of the Griffin. The Griffins maintained the original knightly values of the Witcher Order. Erland was inspired by the ideals of his old sword teacher, known to the Witchers as Griffin. To honor him and his teachings, their school was aptly given his namesake. With their head sorcerer, they developed a new discipline focusing on magic, preparedness, and flexibility. They also emphasized proper etiquette. Griffin Witchers were taught they had a purpose and brothers who would support them. Older Witchers served as role models, and when a boy died during training, he was given a proper burial in a graveyard. At the height of their power, the Griffin Witchers enjoyed great respect. The school's Grand Master was even summoned to the courts of rulers for advice. Like the schools of the Bear and Wolf, the Griffins maintained strict neutrality, believing that once a Witcher broke his neutrality, he could never go back. One distinguishing factor, unlike other schools, is that they had no qualms about killing dragons. Throughout the ages, other schools respected the Griffins for their study of magic and their fighting style, which emphasized facing multiple opponents. Unfortunately, a group of mages grew angry at the Griffins' unwillingness to share their knowledge. When anti-Witcher sentiments rose, these mages caused an avalanche in revenge, killing several Witchers and badly damaging Cair Seren. This event forced Griffin member Cohen to spend winters at Kaer Morhen instead of his home keep, where he would eventually teach Ciri in the ways of the sword. Unfortunately, he would later meet his fate at the Battle of Brenna. Despite the school's fall, there were villages in the north where the deeds of the Griffin Witchers were still celebrated. Students at the Griffin School faced a unique final trial. They could either locate and retrieve a Griffin's egg, or recite the entirety of the Liber Tenebrarum verbatim. However, none ever chose the latter. Griffin School equipment is of medium weight and amplifies the intensity of the wearer's signs, suggesting that the school specialized in the use of magic. Griffin Witchers were known for having higher standards of social etiquette compared to other schools, though this might have been specific to certain individuals. The Griffin Witchers' commitment to their ideals and brotherhood set them apart. Their respect for tradition and neutrality, along with their unique approach to training and magic, made them a revered group among Witchers. Even after their school's decline, their legacy lived on through the stories and celebrations of their deeds. School of the Wolf. The Order of Witchers had nearly splintered entirely, with only a small group of Witchers remaining after several factions left to form their own schools. This last band of Witchers left Morgreg and traveled east, deciding to settle in the northern caves of Morin Valley. By the 11th century, the construction of Kaer Morhen was complete. The original builders had either abandoned the keep or vanished mysteriously, leaving it for the wolves to settle there. In its heyday, the School of the Wolf is one of the most recognized Witcher schools, known for its members' professionalism and reliability as monster slayers. In the second half of the 12th century, Kaer Morhen faced a massive attack by an enraged mob led by a group of mages and priests. All Witchers present at the keep were killed in this brutal ambush. Although the attack was condemned, the school never fully recovered from the devastation. For a while after this, the schools of the Wolf and Cat were funded by Kaedweni monarchs, leading to student exchanges. While some older witches formed friendships, most students didn't trust each other, resulting in frequent brawls and arguments. With not many wolves remaining, the final blow happened at the Witcher tournament, when Cat member Trace colluded with King Radovid. The resulting ambush killed most of the remaining wolf members. By the 1230s, the last children were trained at Kaer Morhen. Over time, knowledge about the trials fade away. By the 1260s, Vesemir was the only surviving member of the old Witchers of the Wolf. He and a few younger Witchers spent winters at the keep, occasionally welcoming witchers from other schools like Cohen. However, cats and vipers were banned from Kaer Morhen. The early 1270s marked the ultimate downfall of the School of the Wolf when it came under attack by the Wild Hunt. This series of events led to the near extinction of the school, leaving only a handful of witchers to continue their legacy. And that concludes today's video. If you enjoyed the content, please leave a like and subscribe. I also want to hear your thoughts and ideas, so please leave a comment and let's get a discussion going. For those who want to show extra support, check out the Patreon. Absolutely not mandatory, but it's there if you really like me and also want a shout out. Once again, y'all are absolutely awesome. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.